So hey, it's Chase from On the Table Gaming, and today we're going to be looking at the visions in the, well, not really the vision of the flames, but the visions in maybe the Asmodee USA store page, as the Asmodee website updated a bunch of previews of things that you can pre-order, revealing the She-Bears, the Freedmen, the Hedge Knights, the Queensmen, and the Roller Faithful. So I'm joined by Barrick the Brick of A Song of Ice and Fire Discord fame, Mike from Off the Wall Games in Massachusetts, one of the best A Song of Ice and Fire communities on the East Coast, and then Calvin as well, our Patreon supporter extraordinaire. So thank you guys so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And we were chatting a little bit before we got things started and giving our kind of initial impressions here of the She-Bears. And Barrick, kind of what was your hot take here? What were your first impressions?
Like the fact there are 6 scalps, like honestly, they're all female army. That's all female unit. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great to get a little bit more like diversity in the factions as well. I mean, they look pretty amazing. Like these are 6. You're saying 6 sculpts here, and they all look like pretty fantastic. Calvin, how about you? What are you thinking about the She-Bears?
So I really like the alternate, or I guess it would technically be the primary Mormont veteran sculpt now. The one that's not in the attachment box it's the kind of lady on the front of the box carrying the torch. So it's just like a really kind of unique sculpt. I think they all look great.
They're ready to burn things down.
Yeah,
they got these giant like spike club mace things ready to just like bash things in.
Yeah, I would not want to get hit with one of those.
Mike, how about you?
I think this is really neat. We kind of already got maybe a mini preview of this unit with the attachment box, so it's nice to kind of see what the whole thing's shaping up to be. But really fantastic looking sculpts.
I will say they have a little bit of shades of the Great Axes kind of in their style.
All of them are holding clubs or mace, but I have the Mormon veteran sculpt from the attachment box. She's holding more of an axe. So yeah, that's a slight difference from the attachment box Mormon veteran.
And I think looking at the box art on the back side, there's an image there, and I believe that image is in the original art book that came with the Kickstarter. And I think this might be the last unit that was revealed at Kickstarter through art that has now been or is now coming to be released. I think with this unit, it will actually close out. I think all the other art has been accounted for in released units up to this point. So that kind of like solves that final mystery piece there.
Yeah, you'll even see like the art style. Like they don't, it seems like that even from the box, they don't use that art style anymore on the back. They're a little bit more detailed. So that's interesting. And
so the Mormont veteran had hardened or has hardened, at least in 1.6. And so each time the unit was attacked after the defense dice are rolled, they would automatically block, additional hits. Based on how many destroyed ranks. So do you think that the unit itself is going to have some sort of mechanic that interplays with that idea? Like, what do you think might be the role of a unit like this?
Honestly, I feel like they might be a disrupt unit. I mean, like kind of like the Cradlemans or the Night's Watch, Veterans of the Watch.
I'm not getting an agile feel or disrupt feel off of the ability.
That's true. But they feel like maybe they're resilient or something on the tanky side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they're a unit that's going to sit on an objective and say, all right, bring whatever you got at me, and I'm just going to hit you in the skull.
Mike, how do you kind of maybe predict these might play out?
I'm actually reading the unit description on the back of the box a little bit here. So it says, let's see, they have...
Zoom and enhance.
Yeah, exactly. She-Bears wear armor of thick leather and heavy plate and arm themselves with 2-handed maces capable of caving in breastplate on armored helm with a single blow. They add medium infantry with all the strengths and weaknesses therein. The more dire the situation, the harder the She-Bears fight, often carrying on the battle past near fatal wounds.
Ooh, okay.
Sounds like Berserker. Sorry. Yeah.
The best of my blurry reading there. Yeah. But if we look at the other design indications, we already had the Kickstarter exclusive. Was it Alyssa Mormont maybe who?
Mage Mormont.
Mage Mormont. Yeah. The She-Bear, and she had the go down fighting. So maybe we will see something similar unit wide.
Oh, that could be fantastic. And it kind of hints at like smashing in helms, like maybe a sundering in it, maybe something that's like a little like an armor cracker.
They remind me a little bit of cutthroats, just with the similar kind of weapon. So maybe something similar to that.
Although no disrespect to neutral players, I'm liking these sculpts more than the cutthroats. The cutthroats are kind of like these really tall guys, and these are some hardy women you really like smash face.
Honestly, the text, from what I'm understanding, it's they're probably gonna have an ability based on ranks, similar to Berserkers and I guess Great Axes.
And then let's maybe move on down and talk about the new Targaryen unit that's been revealed. So the Freedmen, and this is a really interesting one as well. First off, the box art is really, really cool. We don't see on the Asmodee store the back of the box, but of the 2 sculpts they revealed, it's 3 miniatures on a single base. And so that kind of raises some questions about, like, is that going to be a solo tray? Probably, I'm guessing, but it could maybe be, would we ever see potentially like a cavalry tray with kind of a different sort of style, like layout of troops where they're like, 4 spots of clusters versus like the clean ranks? I don't know. Any predictions or thoughts in general about this unit, what we see?
I think it would be really cool if they were if you get like 4 solo trays or 2 or however many, because they kind of serve as like a disorganized unit. You can kind of just move them all over the battlefield. They're not something your opponent wants to focus on, but they can do a lot of kind of disruption just by kind of flooding in areas.
That sounds kind of good. I don't know. Like my concern with Targaryens is they are starting to look like they have a lot of solo trays.
Definitely.
Like I think they have Jorah. They have 3 dragons. That's 4 that I can think of right now already. And
possibly the Hawkars.
Hawkars are solo as well. So having more solo trays will be an interesting thing, but it may mess with their faction identity a little bit. But then again, Targaryen's faction identity have always been like a mixed army of different factions all in one.
I think it would be interesting to see maybe more irregular style units. So we maybe see a cluster on some small bases, maybe in looser formations, kind of like maybe you've seen in some other traditional war games.
Well, can you expand upon that? So you're meaning like maybe having some sort of like
almost like the skirmishers in old Warhammer Fantasy, where they didn't exactly rank up. So maybe requiring them to have a loose formation, it could just be a really interesting design space that hasn't been really explored yet.
Here's my crazy speculation. What if it's a cavalry tray that can turn into solo trays?
Oh, I feel like that's like something out of a movie, and they're like, what's showing up on the radar? It's like one blip, and they're like, oh no, it's hundreds. Like they were all hiding on top of each other.
That would be really fun.
Basically, they can take wounds to transfer the wounds to a solo tray.
If Targaryens can't get dragons and Transformers, I would be jealous. I'd be like, how are they?
We do see one very triumphant-looking leader character, maybe there in the middle, who doesn't look represented on any of the bases. So maybe there's something else in this box we haven't seen yet as well.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, maybe there could be some sort of like cohesive thing where it's like based around a leader then. I don't know. There's room. Yeah, there's a lot of cool room for design space there then. You're right. I was almost wondering, do you think we might see something like, could this be like the old Free Folk Raiders sort of situation where it's like you have to buy a certain number? Like you don't just get one tray, you got to buy a pair of, 6 points worth or something. Because I'm assuming it's going to be a cheap unit. And the Targaryens, don't have a lot of cheap units. So I could see this probably being pretty desirable as like maybe something a little bit more spammable or something you could like fill in your gaps with. But hopefully it doesn't just become a lot of just free activations.
I would imagine if they're in a solo tray, I would imagine they'll be 2 to 3 points. And if they were in a larger kind of like cavalry tray, but infantry, maybe 4, maybe 5. They're definitely going to be a unit that you just kind of use as a meat shield, but it would be interesting if they had kind of like a regeneration mechanic. Like you kill them, they don't have a whole lot of great abilities, but they can just keep coming back.
That kind of sounds like Poor Fellows, right?
A little bit, yeah.
I mean, that's the comparison because they do look like the Essos versions of the Poor Fellows.
Absolutely.
We also saw the Hedge Knights, but I know, as Free Folk are such a popular faction, we probably don't need to spend a lot of time talking about them. No coin behind the wall and stuff. No, I only joke because I know Barrick is a fan of them, and I know Mike, you're one of the most long-time neutral players. Hedge Knights. Mike, I'll give the honor to you. Why don't you start us off here? Any initial thoughts?
Oh man, I mean, ever since these were, spoiled, I think months ago in some pre-order lists and misspelled, I've been, looking forward to them for a long time. So no, I think this is going to be a really interesting unit. We're starting to see a lot of cavalry kind of come out of neutrals right now. So this will be our third cavalry unit for the faction, which could have some cool design implications as far as list building, but also just the sculpts are really, really awesome. You have these, rugged guys, beat up looking knights on horses with big two-handed swords, and lots of open space too if, anybody felt inclined to do their own heraldry, which I think is something that's kind of ripe for kind of creative exploration there.
And then, Callan, I think we were talking a little bit beforehand. They did mention on the back of the box, there's 4 miniatures, and then there's a total of 5 cards, which includes a unit card and 4 attachment cards and a movement tray. So it seems like maybe there might be a lot more to this box than meets the eye.
Yeah, I think when there are a couple kind of scenarios here where it's if you wanted each individual miniature has the same ability, but because it's a neutral, you could have them in different units, and therefore you would technically need a different card for them. Or each figure somehow has its own different ability, which is very interesting. But that's kind of strange because it doesn't seem like they're notable characters or figures within the Song of Ice and Fire universe at all.
Right, none of them look like the Hedge Knight, right? There's no like especially tall Duncan miniature here.
No. But going off of what Mike said, I kind of had the exact same thinking, was that when I first heard, Hedge Knights neutral, or a unit that was eventually coming out, I was like, oh, wild speculation. What are these guys going to be? Are they going to be, foot knights? Are they going to be mounted? Are there going to be variations of that? And then seeing them, they are just kind of incredible looking sculpts. And my kind of first thought also was, oh man, I could do so much with like random heraldry and different things from the universe itself, of like lesser houses and things to paint on these guys.
I love how they're so worn. Like, how do you depict them as different than regular knights? And just seeing the actual like built into the sculpt cuts on the cloth and the scrapes on the shields, like they do look a little bit more weathered there. So even if you don't paint them, right, if you're new to the hobby and you don't paint your miniatures, like these will still have a lot of flavor just as is. And I'm excited to see like kind of what other things people do with them. Barrick, you were actually talking a little about some of the side projects that you might be excited to incorporate this unit into. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I mean, they brought about the heraldry idea, but honestly speaking, these sculpts are beautiful and they're so good for conversions for many projects. So there was that House Iron, fan-made, cards that were made previously. Yeah, like these sculpts are totally perfect for that. And honestly, I probably have to buy 3 to 4 boxes just to cover House Iron.
And maybe, make your own cool like custom force then. I don't know. Yeah, actually, Mike, what are you thinking? How many unit boxes did you maybe pre-order for them?
At least 2. So maybe we'll see more with the attachments, whether or not that brings something else, but absolutely 2 of them.
I can't see myself going below 2 as well.
Yeah, 2 is definitely the minimum.
That's good. As a free folk player who's maybe looking to dabble in some other factions like Greyjoys, I'm like, well, what do I do with neutrals, and how many should I be getting? So maybe I'll pick up 2 then as well.
The answer is all the neutrals, Chase.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, also, I'm looking at Greyjoy and I'm like, well, I don't think there'll probably be a faction that's all about cavalry. So,
yes.
Maybe getting a Hedge Knights unit like that maybe makes sense to have as another option, something a little bit more speedy.
Completely agree. Yeah.
And then for Baratheon, we have the Queensmen revealed now as well. Now we'd heard about the Kingsmen before. Now we get the Queensmen, and they've got some really interesting box art. I couldn't quite tell at first, and this is where my mind goes. It looks like they're killing. Are those free folk or are those Starks on the box art? They're killing some people in furs. It looks like so.
It's definitely free folk.
What? Okay. How dare they?
Well, they're in the north,
No, that's ice.
What the heck? All right.
I initially thought it was kind of a beach landing and they were killing something, but on a lot of the other Baratheon boxes, it looks like they're killing like storm crows or something.
So first question, like, is this really necessary, right? Why do we got to stick it to the free folk here like this in this beautiful box art? But second thing, talking about sculpts, this is another faction. You guys are talking about like heraldry on shields. Like these sculpts look fantastic, and the shields, everything really seems to pop. And I love the renders that they show here. But I know just like a lot of the Baratheon units, they come out with that kind of like buttery color, and like they just show a lot of detail. Who here likes to dabble with Baratheons, and are these on your list? What are you excited about?
I mean, I haven't played them yet, but I have collected pretty much all of them, and they're a lot of fun to paint. And kind of seeing that each kind of figure here has a different helm, that's pretty cool. And yeah, the shields are going to be so much fun to paint.
Do you guys typically prefer having shields with the imagery like sculpted in, or do you like to do like a flat shield that you freehand or like apply a transfer to?
It has to be sculpted in, man. That's my preference.
I would strongly prefer that as well, as somebody who hasn't a ton of experience in freehanding.
Freehanding as emblem, that's not easy, man. That's not easy.
Mike, what are your thoughts on the Queen's Men?
Just between like the artwork and the unit themselves, they look really, really cool. They've got this awesome kind of rugged, like beaten look to them. You can kind of see scratches and like nicks on the armor, and yeah, they just look really, really cool.
And we see that this unit does not come with an attachment. It's 11 miniatures, including, and then one bannerman. So it looks like it'll be kind of its self-inclusive unit here. What do you think we might see for stats here? What kind of unit might this be?
I would assume it's going to have a 3 armor save with plate mail and a shield.
Yep.
It's going to be slow, I'm guessing, right? That's a given.
I mean, it's the Baratheon.
Pairing off with that then is the roller Lightbringers, which we've seen in the past, right? That's a unit that was revealed before. I think we might have had one shot of the sculpt. Is that ring true?
Yeah, there was one in, I can't remember if there was a chat that
Maybe CMon Expo?
Yeah, I think it was CMon Expo that they were briefly on screen for, a couple seconds. But I've seen some screenshots of them, yeah.
And so we've seen their stats from back then, and it was subject to change, right? And they had that vicious fire arrows where if the defender failed their panic test, they would suffer an additional wound, and then it would also spread a panic token to another unit within short range. So we kind of get like somewhat maybe of what, even if the rules change or they get tweaked a little bit, we get somewhat of an idea behind what they're going to be about. What do you think of the sculpts, the box art? I mean, we can pull out a little bit here. There's no attachment in the unit, so there's not quite as much to talk about. But what were your initial impressions of what we see here?
I mean, they're the best looking ranged unit in the game.
They've come a long way since the Stark Bowmen, huh?
Yeah. I mean, the Stark Bowmen. I like the Stark Bowmen. They're simple, but they're beautiful in their own way.
They have a classic feel to them. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. A classic feel and no way to pick up arrows.
Yeah, more for intimidation, right? The enemy looks out and sees a silhouette, and they're like, "Oh, there's a lot of guys over there with bows." Yeah, they don't have any arrows though. Well, they remedied that here, right?
Oh, this makes me want to learn object source lighting. If you're looking at that box art, if you ever want to, paint up a unit of that, maybe having a whole Stannis army that has source lighting on all the flame weapons would be really cool.
Man, I'd love to see what people do with even like their scenic bases. It'd be cool to do like a little trench in front of them with like fire. Ooh. Like it's like a little LED or something where it's like they're all standing there ready to dip their bows in there.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Do you have a favorite sculpt out of the 4 that we see here? They're pretty dynamic, a lot of cool action poses.
I was going to say the non-action pose guy looks kind of the best to me. And I think if we go back and I'm looking at on the channel right now, the guys that are not doing anything, I think when I first saw that, I was like, okay, the action poses look better. Here, I mean, that guy just kind of looks like, you know what? I can slowly pull my arrow out, and I know that it's terrifying if the enemy sees me just like casually pulling a fire arrow out of my quiver.
It's also interesting. I'm noticing here that when they post the images on their website, they're in reverse. They flip the image. And so initially I was like, oh, interesting. They fire their bows in their right hand, but that's not the case. It's just the way they present the images on the Asmodee store. Wonder what the reason is behind that.
Is that reverse? Yeah, they are reverse.
I wonder if there's, why that happened. At some point, someone has to make that conscious decision. That's interesting. But probably not the mysteries we need to explore on the podcast. But, I mean, these are really amazing, and I'm excited to see what these actually, come out as their finalized version. I guess we'll probably get maybe a clue of that in the 21 card packs, maybe before these units even get out in the wild. There isn't really a specific release date for them yet, but it looks like we've got a lot of things coming down the pipe. Well, thank you guys so much for jumping on here quick. I know this is a little bit impromptu. We saw them get released, and Barrick, you kind of organized these great cards that showed like all the box art and the units together to share. That was fantastic. And we realized we're all here talking about it. We're like, let's just jump on and record something. And so thanks for making the time to come on here and talk.
No problem.
Awesome.
Yeah, having Barrick on, it's like having our own little RSS feed.
There we go. the brain trust in here.
Thank you.
It has to be a certain timing, because if these things pop out at 3 to 4 a.m., I'm asleep, man. I can't do this. The RSS feed is down.
Yeah, we have a running joke. I sleep through all the spoilers, and then have to catch up hours later. But
this is the perfect overlap of time. Well, I'm excited to get up there to Massachusetts at some point, maybe this summer, depending on COVID and how things have cleaned up. And hopefully we'll all have all the cool toys at that point.
I'll be looking forward to it.
So Barrick and Calvin and Mike, thank you so much for jumping on, and I look forward to chatting with you more in the Discord. And for everybody else, let us know in the comments what you think about these new units, if you have any speculation ideas or theories. And in the meantime, go get your miniatures on the table.